Hey people of the VC, it's Andy Cloudy Milder. Got a collection update for you today. So the last video I'd said that I just finished that 50 album challenge and it took me a long time. Well, during that time I didn't stop buying any new records or any new music. I just haven't had a chance to listen to any of it. So for the best part of a month I added to my already busting at the seams vinyl inbox, and it's turned into a bit of a monster that's is about to explode. So I've picked out 7 albums that I listened to, and I listened to each of these quite a lot, 2 or 3 times at least this week. So I thought I would do a video on those, and then probably when I've got through the next 7 I'll do another video then. So that could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, who knows. But let's dive in. So the first, I'm not organised here, am I? So the first band, right, let's dive in. Let's get professional. Game Face. FN Guns with Nightmare from 1984 on Mausoleum Records. Now, FN Guns are a Belgian band. There's nothing particular standout-ish about FN Guns, and nothing particularly original here that you wouldn't have heard before really from other bands. But if, like me, you have you love 80s metal a lot, and you have an affection for labels like Mausoleum, then you're really going to dig this. Now, Mausoleum used to pick up a lot of bands. I would probably call them, in hindsight, maybe second-rate heavy metal bands back in the 80s. Very competent, very good stuff, but they weren't doing anything particularly special. They weren't, the big labels all had their big bands, and Mausoleum went around mopping up all the sort of the B-list acts out there. Now, whereas they may have been B-list acts back in the 80s, there are some real gems to be found and heard now, and this is one of them, to be honest with you. I really like it. My first listen, I was kind of, don't know, but second listen and then the third listen, I was fist pumping and singing along, and yeah, I played this 3 or 4 times. Really good listen. The whole album is less than 34 minutes, so it doesn't take up too much of your time and does allow you to sort of get through it and then having enjoyed it, play it again without wasting too much time. Vocally, so Steve Shorter is on the vocals. I'm guessing this is him because he's the most well-dressed, rock-looking bloke on the album, and he's got a very fine, I'm guessing leather-studded codpiece beneath his bullet belt. So I'm guessing that's Steve Shorter. His vocal style is it's an interesting cross between, say, Robert Plant and Lemmy, and there's certainly some Led Zeppelin influences on here. In fact, there's a Led Zeppelin cover version on here, Living Loving Maid on side 2, which isn't a bad cover. I'm not actually that familiar with the original Led Zeppelin song, to be honest with you, so I don't know if they've butchered it or not, but in my ignorance, I quite like that. There's another cover on here as well that ends side 1, which is I'm a Man, which is a Spencer Davis group cover, which I think it was written by, the song was written by Stevie Winwood. Yeah, I'm a Man. So, Marathon Man and No God, No Master, 2 highlights from this album, so you should maybe try and check those out if you want to hear the best of FN Guns. Has a power ballad to finish it off called Blow It Away, and it's actually a pretty good song, but it doesn't really fit in with the sound of the rest of the album, not only because it's more of a ballad, more of a power ballad, but also because when you get there, it's like they've turned up all the knobs, and they've blown their full sound engineer, production, whatever, budget on this last song in a bid for it to catapult them up for stardom. So it's louder, it sounds richer, and it just sounds so much better produced than the rest of the album. But it didn't work for them, which is probably why you've not heard of FN Guns before. Like I say, it's on Mausoleum, and that's a label I will grab anything I see on it. Next up, 1985 this time on Roadrunner Records from Chicago, Illinois. This is Hat-Trick the Beast. Take a look at these guys. This is 85, so the whole MTV hair metal, glam metal movement hasn't really taken off just yet. So they've got the image that many would refine later on, but this doesn't really sound like a hair metal album. It's certainly not produced well enough to be one or fit into that bracket. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. I think I've probably heard better quality recorded demos than the production on this album, so it's hardly surprising really that they were a one and done band. This is John McPherson on vocals. His vocal style is very screechy and scratchy. Now some vocalists have made a very good career out of screechy and scratchy vocals, but John, unfortunately, again, to say this was his one and only outing. Yeah, production not good. Cover of We're an American Band, not good. But there's one good song. Well, one good song on here. I'll say it's a good song. It's hilarious, really, and it's called "I Like to Eat Out," and it's as suggestive as it sounds. They're not talking about going for a McDonald's. Let me read you a snippet. You think it's really neat to go out, get something to eat. I think that I could eat you. Then the chorus, I like to eat out, I like to eat out, I like to eat out, it's true. It's fun to eat out, we're sworn to eat out. I like to eat out with you. Made you scream about 2 a.m, wet dream about 3 a.m. Climaxes, we had a few. Want to bet, I'll raise you 10. Write a check, ain't got no pen. You say you like what I do. Eric likes to eat out, Rich likes to eat out, John loves to eat out, he likes to eat out, she likes to eat out, we all like to eat out. Poetry in motion. There we go, Hat-Trick. And that's on the Roadrunner label, so a Dutch pressing, I would think. Yep, made in Holland. Number 3. This is on the Noise label, so you know it's going to be a lot better quality than Hat-Trick. This is a German band called Mania, and this is A Changing Times, and this is from 1989. This is, let's say, a fantastic album. Now, I think you could tell they're a German band by this. The cover art at the back, they kind of reminds me of something that, well, makes me think of something that Halloween would do. Obviously, another German power metal band, and there are some Halloween power metal influences in here, but it would be unfair just to compare them and say that they were a Halloween rip-off or clone band, but they certainly do share some of the same DNA. Again, there's an obligatory power ballad on here, which is No Way Back, but this is a really thoroughly good listen. I would recommend checking these guys out. Inner sleeve, pristine condition, comes with lyrics and a list of other Noise titles. Great German label, and fairly plain, but does its job label. Number 4, another on Noise and another German band, and this is Rage, Perfect Man. Now this was a grail for me, but not a typical grail. Now I'd never heard the album and it was a grail, so how could that be? Well, just for the artwork, to be honest. Ever since I first saw this picture a long time ago, I kind of wanted the album. It's probably one of my favourite album covers ever. I imagine it's even by a famous artist or something. I'm afraid I'm a little bit ignorant as to who drew it, and I never bothered looking up, but I have always wanted to own a copy of this just for the cover. But it just so happens that the record is also really good. They're a cross between kind of speed metal and German power metal, but the lyrics are very much more sort of thrash metal themed. There's a lot of politics, talk about crime, the sinister side of people, genetic experiments, religious conflicts. All the things that you kind of expect from a good thrash metal album are represented here in the lyrics. I would recommend songs Don't Fear the Winter, very catchy lyrics and solos. Death in the Afternoon is an interesting tale of two friends, one a banker, Harold, and the other bloke called Larry, who's pretty much has no money to his name. While the banker, Harold, dies in a car crash, and Larry sees his check cards all over the floor covered in blood, and ends a song saying, you know, there's no pockets in a coffin. So clearly a message about money not making you happy, although I'd like to try it one day. Let's see. So that's my 4 80s. We're going to go for 3 newer bands. Oh, in fact, let's show you the rest of Rich. So there's a pristine lyric sheet, and again, standard noise label. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Yeah, so let's move forward to 2019 now. 2 releases, both on Cruz del Sur Records, and both of these I picked up at a gig in March this year, and they were both releases that I kind of wanted to pick up, but were quite pricey to import in to the UK, so it was great to see the 2 bands and also pick up some merch and get them signed as well, which is pretty cool. First up, Canadian epic metal band Gatekeeper. Now this is they call this an EP called Grey Maiden. It has 4 tracks and it plays at 45 RPM. It's a 12-inch single. And I think it cost me 15 quid, which is one reason why I didn't want to buy it online plus pay postage, because I don't think it was available, certainly when I looked, from the UK. So it's an expensive 12-inch single, but it's a good 12-inch single. There are 4 good tracks on it, and the fact that I saw them live and was able to pick this up and get it signed and meet the band kind of justified the cost for me. It was quite good. So there's 3 original tracks on here and a cover version, Richard III, which was originally performed by Tredegar, which is a Welsh new wave of British heavy metal band from the 80s that didn't really do too much. Now Tredegar was formed by 2 of the original members, or certainly 2 very early members of Budgie. So they had a good bit of rock pedigree, but they didn't really take off when the metal scene took off as well. Really good live. I would thoroughly recommend, if you get to see them, to go and see them. The lead singer. So they started playing, and then there was this. So Jean-Pierre Abaud. I was fairly near the front, and this big guy with massive heavy metal hair came and stood, and he started fist pumping as soon as they started. The band started playing, and I thought, oh, right, guy's one of these guys. Okay, fair enough. He's probably with the band, travels with them. He's quite loud. He was like shouting at the band straight away, and he started doing his head banging. And there's nothing worse than standing next to somebody in a gig and having like hair flapping in your face when you just want to see the band. So I took a couple of steps to the right and was kind of giving him the eyes and daggers, thinking like, yeah, control your hair, man. And then after kind of the intro, he went and got on stage, and it was the singer. So that's probably obviously his thing, where he lets them do the intro and then he does his big entrance on the stage. But he's a good singer. I say that There are similarities here between some of the big epic metal bands like Manowar, for instance, in terms of that sound, not in terms of the image. So there's an interesting sort of A4 size lyric sheet and the band info, and quite a nice poster. So you're kind of getting a little bit more for your money than just a 12-inch single. There's nice artwork on here. That's quite a nice poster. Not that I put any posters up, but it kind of makes the package a little bit more palatable for the cost. And custom labels. I also got a couple of guitar picks as well from one of the guitarists. Funnily enough, after the gig, but I've left it upstairs. So, but it's just a pick. So Gatekeeper were the opening band. The main band on that night was another fairly new band to me, but a band that I've seen certainly Kevin Wargod 60 show, and that's Sanhedrin, and this is their latest album, The Poisoner. It's their second album. Sanhedrin are from New York City. They're a fairly new band, although certainly the guitarist and the singer Erica Stoltz have I think they've been in the industry for quite some time. They have a very classic rock and metal sound, but it's certainly not in the new wave of traditional heavy metal band. They're not trying to sound like an 80s band. They have their own sound to them, and I love this album. I would thoroughly recommend anybody checking it out. Their first album was a private press, and it's really hard to get hold of, so I'm hopeful. They did mention their guitarist, I call it the guitarist, what's his name? Jeremy Sosville. He was saying that they're hoping to get a repress of that first one, which I would definitely pick up. And there's Erica Stoltz in the middle and drummer Nathan Honor, and we have lyrics as well. So tracks to check out, probably the first two, Meditation, All My Gods Are Gone, and Wind on the Storm are both cracking tunes. And plain label on side A, but nice bit of custom art on side B. And the last one for today, I bought this ages ago, and I was really surprised when I actually found it lurking at the back of the inbox. So I've heard it a few times. I've ripped it and I listened to it on my Walkman a lot, and I just forgotten it was in the inbox, so I've not shown it yet. So it's time to get it out. So this is Amulet's first album, The First. Amulet being a UK new wave of traditional heavy metal band. The production on this, it's unlike a lot of the new bands playing traditional metal that kind of trying to sound like maybe Dickinson era Iron Maiden or Judas Priest. These guys actually have a really authentic sort of 1980s sound, and in fact the album sounds like it could have been recorded in the 1980s. It doesn't have that highly polished feel that a lot of new metal albums have these days, so it has a kind of a little rough and ready sound to it, but it's really good. So Amulet are from London. They've just released their second album either this month or last month. I have pre-ordered the vinyl, so that should be coming in June. But they have there's only two of the original band members actually, so they're just the two guitarists that were in the band are the only remaining members. So they have changed their drums, bass and vocals, so the sound of the new material actually sounds a bit more like the traditional metal bands, a lot of other traditional metal bands, to be honest with you. It doesn't quite have the same raw edge, but this was 5 years ago, and a lot of bands that do continue to release over the last 5 years that have probably haven't had the conflict these guys have had, that have ended up reforming with different members. So their style, I guess, would have changed over 5 years, and I would say that the change is as noticeable as, say, Iron Maiden changing from Killers to The Number of the Beast. A very, very different sound between the two, obviously with a different singer as well. But of the 2 songs on the new album that I have heard, I like one and the other one I thought was meh. So I'm hoping that the overall the album will be good when it turns up. But I don't want to listen to any more of it because I'm looking forward to getting it myself. So songs on here to check out: Evil Cathedral, Bloody Right has a really good sort of Diamond Head vibe to the sound. Trip Forever is great as well. There is the Flight last track on side 1 sticks out like a sore thumb. It's more of a synthwave song. In fact, it's a very 80s sort of sci-fi synthy sound that you'd expect more in a soundtrack of Blade Runner than on a heavy metal album. It's not bad in itself, it's just doesn't really fit on the album. Collage gatefold, I've showed that quickly before, and label, nothing too funky there. And this also came with, well, it's not really a poster, it's the lyric sheet folds out to be a slightly bigger version of the album art, which is pretty nice. And then the lyrics have a booklet form on the inside. There we go, that's the 7 albums this time round. Quite a bit longer than I expected, so I hope you stuck with me. The next vinyl update I do will be when I've got through the next 7 albums in the inbox. So thanks for watching, let me know what you think. Catch you again soon.